We'll start off with hello, first of all.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. We'll start off with your names and just a little bit about your backgrounds.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, mate?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, I'm Ian, one of the co-founders of Zacal. I also run a couple of other businesses, one of which we're actually in the studio of one of the companies called Fit, which is the #1 rated fitness app in the UK. Been running that for the last 7 years, and before that I was at Google, so I was one of the first through the doors of the UK office in 2005. So saw Google grow at this like meteoric rate. So I've been working in technology, and Zacal's the sort of first venture into a kind of non-tech brand, which I've been super excited building over the last few years.
Yeah, and hi, my name's Phil. Same as Ian, I'm like co-founder and CEO of Terroir Spirits, which is the brand, which is the holding company for Zacal Mezcal. Similar to Ian, really worked in technology most of my career. I was at Meta for 17 years. I think it was like employee number 7 in Europe, which was very exciting in your mid-20s. But yeah, like before that, worked in sort of broadcast, and then really my first proper job was working in advertising at Saatchi & Saatchi, which was an interesting experience, a bit like the real Mad Men. But yeah, like a bit like Ian, just like for us, so excited to be able to launch and bring something to people that we can taste and touch and smell and really enjoy together. It's quite a big departure from what we've been doing.
We'll talk a little bit about that, I think, in the next.
Yeah, it's been eye-opening.
So, so how did you guys get together? How do you know each other?
Uni. Yeah, we lived it when we. How long did we live together?
We've lived together. I think we worked at Joey and Chandler from Friends. It was the same amount of time as them. It's like 10 years.
Long time.
But yeah, we met at university first week, Freshers Week in Bath University, and we became best friends ever since. The other two co-founders who are with us today, well, they are.
They haven't passed.
Sorry,
they haven't passed.
No, they're not in the building. They're not in the building today.
Or maybe they are.
Maybe
we can.
They're here in spirit.
Live stream on the screen now. So yeah, Andrew, we went to university with as well, and we lived together for a number of years. And Cri, we actually met when we were running student parties in Bath. So we're trying to run these exclusive, sort of very non-studenty parties for the kind of more discerning Bath student. And it was at a members club in Bath where we met Cri, who was the cocktail barman there. And that's kind of where I guess our first love of drinking together and having fun together kind of all came together.
Yeah. Have we talked about Andrew? What his background is?
Yeah, that's probably worth.
Yeah, so like Andrew is another. He is with us, just not here. So Andrew, to be fair, is actually the guy. Cri obviously has a mixology background, but Andrew is genuinely from a drinks background. So he helped launch Argentinian wines in Europe. So that was, I think, a huge thing that he was a big part of. Basically, meaning that Malbec became the wine of choice for many people. He's also now currently like the MD of the super yacht like provisioning company, which means he mingles in some very interesting circles like we were talking about before. But yeah, like I think Andrew's sort of he's like our drinks guy, and then Ian and I suppose kind of come from more like sales, business development, marketing sort of backgrounds, and Cri is very much like data analytics, and he's a mixologist and has a very discerning palate. Shall we say.
And I think that sort of, I guess, diverse background is, as we talk more about the brand and kind of how we're trying to, I suppose, approach the market and building a brand in this sector differently. I think it all comes from initially the DNA of the founding team.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of when we looked at this sector, seeing a huge opportunity, wanting to do something in this sector. I guess zigging when everyone else zags is, something that was kind of core to everything we did, from everything from the product, the brand, the go-to-market strategy. So we'll talk, I guess, a little bit about that today.
Absolutely. I think that's the beauty of it, is we have come in pretty much with fresh eyes. We don't really have any hang-ups and prejudices. We don't really have any blueprints or playbooks that we haven't worked at Diageo. We haven't done any of those things. So we definitely were able to come at it, I think, from a fresh angle, which, look, has caused problems at various points because there's things we just did not know, and we might have known them if we'd done this kind of thing before. But I also think it's allowed us to genuinely do things very differently. certainly within the mezcal space. And I think that's something, it's both, I'd say it's both a bane and a boon, like, being this idea of the spiritless ordinary, which I will kind of expand upon a little bit later. It gives us a really good North Star, but it also comes with some challenges because it means you can't just do things normally. That everything has to have a bit of a quirk to it and a bit of a sort of a kink to it. But I think it's one of those things that I'm glad that we sort of stuck with it. I think in all the time we worked together, I think it would have been really easy for us to have just taken the easy route.
Yeah, and I think in some ways, obviously, coming from a technology background, the way you launch products is completely different to how you launch a physical product, particularly in the alcohol and beverage sector. The whole thing is, there's a saying in technology: if you're not ashamed of your MVP, your minimum viable product, then you've overbuilt it, over-engineered it.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is test and iterate, fail fast, use data to optimize the product. With this, particularly successfully building a kind of super premium brand in the mezcal category, it has to be a certain level from day one. The expectations from the consumer, from the distributors we're talking to, from the bars we're talking to, they're expecting something really, really A grade from the get-go, which is probably one of the reasons why it took us maybe a little bit longer than we planned to kind of get it to market, because we had to constantly fine-tune it before that MVP was ultimately ready. And there were a number of times when we were questioning whether we should take some shortcuts, maybe take a slightly different path from the kind of vision we had. But I think as a team, I'm really glad that we stayed
100%
through it, and we've remained friends, which I think is probably one of the most important things.
Have we? Yeah, 100%. On the flip, though, I think what is great is because we have this very close relationship, all four of us, and also Milton, the main man, the master of mischief, our mezcalero. We're discussing like product roadmaps over WhatsApp. Do you know what I mean? And like making decisions, kind of like, well, we're going to give that a shot. And I think the interesting way that we try and think about things a little bit is it a one-way door or a two-way door? If it's a one-way door, you've got to really, really know what you're doing. You have to have good evidence and good support of your hypothesis, because we can't turn back once we've done it. I think in lots of cases, though, wherever we see a two-way door where it's okay for us to go and experiment and try things and play around, we've tried to do that as much as possible. Like if there's an opportunity for us to just do something that seems different and interesting, and we can turn around if we need to, we just go. We'll make the decision, we move. And I think that's certainly something that's come across from like the tech side in which we work in. And again, I think it comes across because we're all so close and we all know each other very well, and there's a trust there, which is helpful. That was an incredibly long intro, wasn't it? I haven't even had to ask another question. Sorry.
We've got dead friends. We've
got we've got absent friends.
Here's to our friends.
You've got to also put a little bit on the side. Yeah. So you've been friends since uni a long time. You've
25 years.
25 years. You've gone off and you've built successful careers elsewhere. So at what point did you all get together and say, something? Let's make a mezcal brand, and why a mezcal brand? So two questions there.
I mean, look, this might have been the case for many people, right? But I think when we were in lockdown and you sort of found yourself with just a little bit more headspace and you sort of felt like you could do more time to think, more time to try different things. And that was when we would do like quite regular catch-ups as a group of friends. And like we'd threatened for quite a long time to do something together. Like when we've wanted to do stuff together for a long time. And I think it just made, when we and to be fair, Ian was the guy that sort of went, this is the time, guys. If we're going to do something, let's do it. And I think we settled on drinks pretty quick. And then it was like, could we do gin? Nah. Could we do tequila? Maybe. What's more interesting and exciting and kind of a little bit undiscovered still, and we've all enjoyed, mezcal. And that, for us, we saw an opportunity, I think, because, and again, this is not to denigrate anything else that's come before us. At that point in time, the UK was not abundant with like really great artisanal mezcals that we thought would bring people into this world. And that's what we were really keen on doing, was like, we couldn't understand why it was sat on the back shelf, not really gathering dust. In lots of cases, it wasn't even in a lot of places. And we thought, well, that's wrong, because this thing is an incredible drink that's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, with an amazing culture and world around it. And that's one of the, for us, as I say, that was a big motivation. You saw an opportunity, I think, to kind of just bring more people in to the what we think is an incredible space of mezcal.
I think we also, we were lucky enough with work and, you know, traveling for holidays, etc., was spending time in the US and seeing what was going on in the US. I mean, you know, when I was 18, I was violently ill on really bad tequila, like Jose Cuervo, and I don't think I touched tequila again for like 10 years. It was that bad of an experience. And again, you know, I with my previous company before Qubit, I was the first guy on the ground over in the US. So I moved to New York, joined one of the early WeWorks. That's going back quite a while now. And started to, you know, go out in New York and seeing tequila and mezcal, of which mezcal I didn't really know much about, if anything at all, but started to like learn more about good tequila and the fact that we're actually over in the, you know, the UK. A lot of the tequila is just not, the mainstream tequila is just not good quality. And that's really where I started to, you know, become really fascinated about agave spirits and got, you know, drinking tequila on a night out more regularly, and that was became my choice of drink. And then I wanted to go somewhere else, and that's where the bartender started recommending mezcal, and that was kind of my my entry into into mezcal, and you know, from that point on, never really looked back. And I think for us, when you start, and again, the more time we now, and we're again really lucky to spend, you know, time in Mexico now and learning more about the country, the industry, how it's produced. The qualities that sit within mezcal are remarkable. We can talk a bit more about it, but you know, I think if people are going to drink, again, you know, our philosophy is people have got to drink responsibly, but they should be drinking quality as well. You know, you're putting something in your body, you know, make sure it's as good as it can be. And I think for us, there isn't a better drink, and you know, alcohol drink in the market compared to mezcal. And I think we've got you know, one of the best mezcals on the market.
And I think that's it. I think tequila before it, but certainly mezcal is shrouded in mystery and I would say misconceptions. I think that for a lot of people, their first experiences, to Ian's point, would be you've had something with Gusano, the worm in it, con Gusano, and it's kind of like, you know, you would be tasting something that felt like you were kind of drinking it either out of an ashtray or out of a car exhaust when the engine was on. And I think that did no favors to mezcal at all. I think, but actually there's such a rich, and that's one of the things that drew us, and has certainly drawn me deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole, is just the sheer variety of plants, of terroirs, of people, of mezcals that they produce, of techniques. It is, you know, what these people have learned over generations couldn't be done scientifically. Like, they've found things out and learned things through experimentation, through testing and learning, generation on generation, that scientists can't explain, like how they've come to that, but it works. And I think that's, to me, it's that kind of mix of art and, you know, a bit of magic with sort of like learned science that I think, for me anyways, we're going deeper and deeper into this thing, just becomes absolutely fascinating.
I think that was one of, I guess, the first, back to our kind of North Star of the Spirit Less Ordinary. I think one of the first big decisions we made was like 90% of mezcal is made in one region called Oaxaca, and we the first big decision we made was we don't want to be like doing exactly the same as like the majority of the market. We want to find a lesser known, less discovered region that we could like really understand their points of difference, the different agaves they use, how the mezcal is produced, and we kind of like identified a number of different producers. There was a short list of producers that one of the team went over to meet, and you know, from that point on, that was like I think probably it was a massive decision, a big risk, but it was probably one of the best decisions we made.
Without question. Like, I think you know, like picking, you know, we talk a lot about sort of taking the path less trodden, and it's not easy. You do have to be a bit nuts, and you have to be pretty resilient and persistent. But I think, you know, what we ended up finding in both the region and in Milton, we couldn't really have asked. But we're very lucky, to be very clear. We're making out like, you know, this is not, so much of this is, yes, we went in with an idea of what we wanted. We had this kind of North Star, you know, we had like checklists and things that we were trying to look for. But you still got to find the person that vibes with you and you vibe with, and pray God, you know, we really, really like Milton a lot. but we were like, the liquid's got to be able to stand up to it for itself. And I think that was the beauty of this, is that it really does. Somehow we've been lucky enough to find someone and a drink and a region that really does everything that we could have possibly asked for. But again, it's a huge amount of luck with these things, as well as it always is. But I think luck, we always used to joke about luck favours a prepared mind. Like, if you know what you're looking for and what you're doing, when those opportunities come along, you can see them for what they are and you can go for it. And I think that continues to be like the way that we think about everything, is just, as long as you've got a sense of where you're trying to get to, you can take advantage of these new opportunities as they come in through the window,
Yeah. And I think, again, once we picked that region, we then had to assemble the kind of the Avengers around it, because it isn't just it's not just the liquid in the bottle. There's all the other things that come with bringing a product to market. And again, I've never doing this before. It was really, very much like fake it till you make it. We're actually talking to people that have been doing this for generations, and we're a kind of new kid on the block, trying to sell them on a vision that we've got, wanting to do things differently, really pushing them hard in what they've ever done before as well, in terms of like the bottle design, how we've done the corks, label design, all of these things were like, we've pushed all of our providers, but
to the point of despair at various points, because they're like, what are you talking about? Why do you want to do that? That doesn't make sense.
And they were just, again, because it took a little bit longer than we planned, and we're really glad we stuck to our vision, but they were just wanting us to ship it, and we were like, no, we want to get this absolutely perfect, because we've got a vision and we want to deliver that.
Yeah. Sorry, Rob. We're basically just like, we're not riffing, and you're not even getting a chance to answer your question.
It's okay.
Sorry,
I'm just listening. So you're
got no choice.
So you're a couple of guys from the UK, not drinks based. So how do you go about making this mezcal? How do you even start?
I mean, look, I think to Ian's point earlier, the first decision is like, where are you going to go? Where are you going to look? Because everything hinges on finding the right partner to work with. And we were very, very keen on making sure that it wasn't just somebody that we white labeled. It was somebody that was a genuine, this person's in it with us from the get-go. We're not just four gringos coming over to appropriate their culture and just bring it over. And that, I think, was like, that's where we sort of began, was like, all of it's got to be about the region and finding the right person to work with. But we did spend a good 6 months, like, educating ourselves, reading a lot of books, reading a lot of stuff online, doing SWOT analysis, like all of the stuff that you would expect a normal business to do. And all of that was good, because I think it gave us a sense of confidence that we had some understanding. But the brutal truth of it, Rob, to answer your question succinctly, is you just got to jump in. You just got to jump in, and you've got to talk to lots of different people that have done it before, which we've been very lucky with the networks that we have, that we know people either in hospitality or have worked in spirits, and we could go to them and like have conversations with them about, this is what we're thinking, and they would go, great idea, but nah, have you thought of this? Or that worked brilliantly, push on. And I think, like we certainly for us, like, you have a lot of expectations of like, this can't be that hard, genuinely. The arrogance of people that have worked in technology for so long, where things can just get turned around in a day, and you've got a minimum viable product overnight. You just cannot do that here. It is
we launched, I mean, just to give you a perspective, we launched the MVP of Fit, the app. It was an iOS app to start with. We launched that once we raised the capital to hire the team. It was 3 months to get the very first version of the product out. This took us 3 years. Just to put it in perspective, this is the difference. I mean, it is literally, night and day. And again, we were probably a little bit naive.
Not a little bit, very old. So.
Yeah, but no, I think in terms of we know setting up businesses is hard. You've got to make lots of sacrifices. There's going to be, the roller coaster is, you have good days and bad days, sometimes good hours and bad hours. It's sometimes that.
It's a game of snakes and ladders.
It is, yeah. And so we knew it was going to be hard. I think, culturally, there's some really big differences with doing business in Mexico as well. And I think we learned the hard way with some of the early partners that we were talking to. But again, it's about learning,
Yeah.
taking on that, and making sure you don't try and not make the same mistakes again. A simple example is in Mexico, people very rarely use email. Everything's done through WhatsApp. So we were, again, with our tech hats on and the way of our modus operandi of working, we would be sending these long emails with actions, timelines, Gantt charts, and our bottle producer's not reading that, other label producer's not reading that.
No.
You send them a one-line WhatsApp, you get a response almost instantly, and it's again, it's just it's a very, very different way of working. But again, we haven't fully cracked the code, but we've got the product to market, and we've got, I think, probably the relationships we've built is probably one of the strongest parts of the journey we've been on so far.
Definitely, and I think to sort of just build on that point, I think your sort of question is one of the hard. Like, being honest with you, so much of it did sort of start with you kind of just had to write down what problem are we trying to solve here. That was kind of like the first thing that we were trying to go is like, what is it that we're trying to do for Mezcal that hasn't been done already? And it was as simple as we want to make it more accessible and approachable for people in terms of flavour profile. We wanted it to be a brand that actually brought something that was more than just, here's the provenance, here's some, with the greatest of respect, some craggy old guy with a hat on and a big moustache. We wanted it to sort of feel less about not just the provenance, but also like a bit of a lifestyle, a bit of an experience, something that people could emotionally connect to, whether they'd been to Mexico or not. And it had to kind of ladder up a little bit more, I think, in that respect. And I think, the hardest...
the other big decision, right? In terms of another big strategic decision around the Spiritless Ordinary was not launch another mezcal that is kind of like all the other mezcals.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the design and the...
Yeah, I mean, for us, when we were thinking through like how we wanted to do this, like even some of the very best products that are out there, they're made using just industrialized bottles. They're not customized, and they are not made from things like recycled glass. This is often big companies having to retrofit a more modern way of thinking about drinks brands. We were very lucky because we could just do it from the start, and that's how we thought of it immediately. Everything from the way that the bottles have been designed, inspired by like the conical volcanoes of Michoacan, because Michoacan basically sits on like on an active, semi-active kind of volcano track. But we based this on Pericotin, which is like the world's youngest volcano. So it first just appeared in 1947, and it's one of the 7 wonders of the natural world. And we were like, what an amazing thing to have as like inspiration, because again, that links in with the terroir in terms of the volcanic soil, the use of volcanic rocks in the cooking of the seeds, or the piñas as they're called. And it all feeds through into the flavors that then come through, which are it's literally coming from what's being this destructive power that's coming out of these volcanoes is creating unbelievable stuff for us to create new things from. And that was like, and it's even down to like the logo itself, which is like the 2 Zs of Zacal. And it looks not only like a volcano, but it also looks like it's an agave plant coming out the top as well. It's all of those little details that we were kind of thinking through at the very beginning.
And we, again, because we're British, we don't have a Mexican background. We felt it was really important to work with an agency. So when coming up with the brand, we thought it was really important to work with an agency that was from Mexico.
Yeah.
So again, another big decision. Never done that before. We weren't really sure how that was going to work, but again, I think it was. We've created, I think, a phenomenal brand. I mean, the feedback we've had from customers, the industry's been incredibly positive.
I think that when you're working with something which is denomination origin, which is very, very, very protected, you've got to make all of the right moves and the right decisions for the right reasons. You can't just blunder in and just think you can do it. This is how we do it over here. And I think that decision to only work with people really within about 2 hours of where Milton's based, and at a push it's Mexico City, at a push, in some cases, because the expertise just wasn't close enough. But in every case, even to the point with the copper lid being made by a guy who's from Soweto, he's just a copper jeweler. So all of these things for us, it was all about how do we sort of champion and bring in like local artisans and make sure that influences how this thing appears to people.
Yeah, so the bottle is recycled and it's made in Mexico, in that region. So everything that we see here is made
even
in
down
that
to like
region.
the paper and the wax and who's handwritten those notes to people as a historian from Michoacan.
Yeah, this is all it's local, regional paper.
Yeah.
And it was handwritten by a local artist. So yeah, I mean that's when we say about having a vision and wanting to stay kind of true to it.
Yeah. But again, I think to Ian's point you made earlier, like it's about finding the right people locally that really buy into what we're doing, that also can help us coordinate and activate that stuff. But I also think, like, truth be told, like nothing ever beats just being there with them. Nothing. You can't, you know, like when Ian and I were out there last in March to see like Milton and Gabriel and some of the folks who are out there, getting up there at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning and like seeing the mist starting to sort of like rise off from the plants and the agave plants in the fields, you just go, this is why we're doing this. Just hanging off the back of a truck, getting bounced all over the fucking place. Just going, this is what it's all about. And just standing in the fields and just like talking with the guys that are doing the HEMA, which is basically the harvest, using the koa, which is sort of like strange, like sort of half sort of like spade shaped thing. And these guys are like, you know, I was absolutely amazed at almost like the skills. Yeah. You couldn't get a machine that could do what these folks can do.
The precision.
It's unreal.
And you know, and they're harvesting 10 tons a day. So they have to get up really early because it's, you know, it gets up to what, 35 degrees. Yeah. So they're literally not stopping until they've done 10 tons.
And they're just absolute, like, they're just masters of their craft. Like, they know, you know, they're taking a 70 kilogram seed and they are taking it from literally being full of pencas or leaves and shaping it into something that actually looks like a pineapple. And they're doing that in minutes. It's incredible. Like, just watching them do it like in person, everything about, and again, this is one of the things when you get into mezcal, everything about this drink is done the hard way, but the right way. Because what you get at the end of it is so much better than something that would be more mechanized and industrialized. Again, that's not knocking anybody that does it that way. That's their decision, their choice. But certainly for us, just that idea of like slow luxury, like slow things done the right way, it massively pays off.
And we also think that, you know, again, thinking about macro trends, that's one of the reasons why, you know, we were excited about this and doing it this way, because we think that's where the market is ultimately going. You know, people are drinking less, but they're drinking, want to drink higher quality. There's certain moments that they want to have a premium drink because they don't want the hangover, or they're going exercising in the morning and don't want to feel the struggle of, you know, drinking really bad products. And again, that's for me one of the things. I guess with building a fitness business, I've been seeing more and more trends where more health conscious people are turning to good quality tequila, good quality mezcal, because of it's the purity of it. It's much cleaner than a lot of other alcohols.
I mean, the thing is, like, listening to you guys, also being in the UK here, you talked about writing down action points and firing off an email and but then I'm feeling from you guys that you've all of a sudden gone, actually, no, this is a business, and breathe, relax. You know, that they have handed something on to you as well. That sort of, you're part of them now, and
absolutely.
You're part of their community, and you're helping their community to grow. But also chill a little bit.
No, 100%. I think when you've worked in industries where everything just gets optimized within an inch of its life, and it's all about efficiency and how fast you can get
scale,
to market.
And growth, and
actually that is the polar opposite. This is small batch, handcrafted stuff. Like even just the actual process of producing a batch of stuff takes months. Like, there is nothing that can be done very fast with this stuff. And a bit like we were talking about with what you guys do, it's like fast and furious kind of, you know, products and journalism versus that more slow, considered, I'm really taking the time to understand this thing. And I think for us and for me personally, that change of pace and direction I found very, very rewarding, because it's made me much more considered, I think, sometimes in terms of what I'm doing. And also just like, it's very humbling when both of us have worked in industries for a very long time, and you kind of get to the point where you're like, I'm still learning, but I'd go, shit, I got it locked down. I could do this job standing on my head. And then you go into an industry where you're talking generations of stuff. This is like accrued learning, like passed down generation by generation. You will never know a tenth of what these people know. And just being very like, despite sort of having a vision of what we want to do, just being very willing to kind of like listen and learn and grow with them. For me, like personally, that's the bit I found most fascinating, is just finding this. It's a bit like sort of pulling back the fur coats in Narnia and finding there's this whole world I never even knew existed. Like that for me is what makes this so exciting. Has kept me, even in the dark days where you feel like we're never going to get there. It's definitely been what's kept me excited about it.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of, I guess that pace, because, I mean, for us, we've I've lived in London and New York all my professional career. It's fifth gear. It's and I mean, even down to this product, I mean, it's 7 years before the agave is ready. And again, you only really start to understand the fact that there's a degree of patience that's needed. It's not just the artistry, but it's the patience that's needed to get this product to market. And, I think, again, there's another probably moment of naivety from us, but I think spending as much time over there as possible has been, I think, really, really important. I think for two reasons. To your point, understanding the ways of working, the fact that we do need to take our time, and and we've got to have patience, like the partners we work with. But the second thing is relationships. I think every time we go over there, we build that level of trust just keeps going up, and and working together, sharing a mezcal together. These moments, you can't do those over a Google Hangout. You can make lots of good progress. You can move things forward, but seeing the first bottle being the liquid going in it and being bottled properly, the label going on, and seeing our mezcal producer like holding it like it's his baby, because it is his baby, and handing it over to us. Those moments are you've got to be there. You've got to feel that. It's one of the proudest things I've
100%,
achieved in my
without
career.
question. Apart from my kids, definitely. Like it's and I think for and you've experienced, what I've experienced is, to your point, is that real pride that, because Milton and his brother Rafa, like, you see the pride they have in like taking these bottles out and putting them in front of people that they live with. It's their town. They're known in these places. And the pride that they have in like just showing it to people, and the excitement that people have in the area to sort of say, wow, like you're taking something that is so beautiful as a liquid and you're putting it into something that looks so beautiful. It just, I that is lovely, because as amazing as he is at making mezcal, I think us teaming up together has meant that he's now got something that we think and he feels really champions the beauty of the liquid that he makes, and it's a wonderful thing to see the pride in his face.
Your point about giving back, I think the whole idea of making sure that everything that we put it in the bottle and on the bottle is locally produced. There's also a learning experience. Like although we've been learning, the team we've been working with has also been learning, because we've had a vision, and we've been kind of pushing the boundaries of what they've done and before and what they can do. I think there's been a huge growth in all the partners that we've worked with. Milton's never exported his product before, so going through the all the kind of steps that you need to go through to get a product out the country is huge. He'd never done that before, so he was faking it till he made it on that side, and we were helping him with our business backgrounds and figuring out how to solve problems with him in kind of real time. The design and branding agencies we work with, again, the way that they do content shoots, they're a lot less organized. I come from we've got a production business here, and we have literally what the team's doing minute by minute throughout the day. They're just turning up with a camera and a bit of product and just figuring it out on the fly. But that's not how you get the best end product.
Yeah.
You need to be organized, you need to have a plan and a strategy. So throughout the kind of supply chain, I think we've also brought a lot.
Totally agree. Yeah, that's a great point.
And I think, that's something else that I guess as a founder, I really, really get a lot out of seeing my team grow and develop. And although, they're not on our payroll per se, they're extended part of our team and extended part of the family. And I think it's been great seeing them grow and develop over the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, and that's such a good point. I think it's like, you forget that it's a two-way street in terms of that learning. And I think, like for Milton in particular, I think he's learned a hell of a lot. And even to the conversations that we're having with him about, like, have you thought about maybe tequila? You grow Tequiliana, you sell the raw materials to tequila brands. Well, but why don't we think about doing that? Like, why couldn't we make a sideways step into making real artisanal tequila? And just like sort of going, just broadening his, and I think that's definitely that point you made around just broadening each other's horizons, like bringing whatever we know from the industries that we worked in. Obviously, all of the gathered, the sort of cultural and gathered learning that they have, we're all getting better. And I think that for me is what's been great, in particular with Milton, is that we've been learning together. None of us have all of the answers. We're all making mistakes, but we're all sort of supporting and helping each other. And there have been like various points where I think we've just kind of gone, I can't believe that's just happened. And we've just gone, hold on. He's our mate. He's trying to help us out. We're trying to help him out. Don't beat him
breathe.
up.
Stop.
Just breathe.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah.
It's not
the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world, there's been a lot, and again, I think it's easy for us to sort of probably say that now in hindsight because it's here, but I think at various points when you're sort of thinking this isn't going to make it, it does feel like a bit like this is apocalyptic and the end of the road. And we've had a number of situations where it's kind of felt a bit like that.
We could pretty much write a book on it. But that probably the final nail in the coffin, or nearly the nail in the coffin, was when the product was just about to get shipped. And it just went dark. It just went dark for a month. We didn't know where the product was.
Mate. It was like 7 weeks.
7 weeks, yeah. We didn't know where the product was, and we couldn't get an answer from anyone. We thought we'd lost the product. Our first batch after all of 3 years. And when it did finally arrive, how many bottles were missing?
50 bottles were missing.
50 bottles.
10% of the batch
just been stolen.
I mean, on the flip side, on the flip side, I was like, I had these I was sort of taking some solace in the fact that I had almost like visions of people in the port just driving around in their forklifts, just like enjoying our stuff, chatting shit together, maybe having a laugh, like just trying to think maybe that's what was going on. They're taking it home and just having a celebration. Like someone somewhere's enjoying it.
So Milton, your distiller, how did you find him? And
Maestro de Mezcalero, Rob.
Okay.
There you go. There's a new phrase for you. Maestro de Mezcalero.
Okay.
Which basically means they're a mezcal master. There you go.
How did you find him, and what's the relationship that you have with him?
I mean, like to Ian's point earlier, like there was we put together like a crib sheet and there was a whole like checklist of things that we wanted to do. And there was a lot of like going and meeting lots of different people. In most cases either didn't click or they didn't like us or we weren't sure about the mezcal. And I think Milton was actually like the last person that was met. And I think that kind of idea of meeting somebody in the middle of Michoacan, one who's called Milton, and two has like a 4-barreled name, Milton Ramon Ochoa Corona. You just think this is the man, this has got to be the guy. And then I think immediately for all of us, as soon as any of us met him, we just clicked. And it's a bit of a weird one to say, but it sort of felt like I'm an eldest son. I've never had an older brother, but it certainly felt a bit like he was like an older brother that I'd never had. I think we all kind of felt a bit like he was almost like this uncle/older brother. Very much kindred spirits, bit mischievous, bit of a glint in the eye.
Less ordinary, back to the North Star.
He's a tattooed Maestro de Mezcalero. There aren't many of them.
It was, again, it was, there was a degree of organisation and planning. We spoke to a number of different potential partners, and again, there was a degree of making sure we found one that ticked all the boxes.
Yeah.
We weren't going to stop until we got
Yeah.
everything that we wanted from a partner, and I think we've got everything we wanted and more, because
Without question.
we've actually not just got a great business partner. He is in our
He's a
minds.
mate.
He's the fifth co-founder. He's a dear friend now, and
Yeah.
I get excited and look forward to going over and seeing him and sharing a mezcal. And
100%.
we're really lucky on that.
Yeah,
on that front.
and it is like, again, that is, you might know what you want, but you've still got to get really lucky. And I think, to Ian's point, that I do believe, though, you to a degree you get what you put out. If you put out positive vibes and friendliness and excitement and passion, you attract those kinds of people back. And I think certainly for us, that's what, to a degree, you get what you deserve, right? Your behaviour, what you exhibit, attracts the people that you want to have around you. And I think certainly for us, that's felt the way with him.
Yeah, and then for and there's also the saying the journey is as good, if not better, than the destination.
Has to be.
And I think ultimately for Milton, we've started our first batch is an incredibly small volume. This is no one's making money from this first endeavor. So he's very much on the journey with us, sees this vision. But I think when the times get tough, if you don't have that relationship,
100%.
that trust, respect, I think
Belief.
there could have been times when there would have been a point where one of the parties taps out because it's just too much hard work. But I think that friendship and respect for each other, I think
Definitely.
has meant that this product is on this table today.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the product then, the two expressions. Do you want to talk through?
Sure. So we'll start with our sort of our versatile mezcal. It's the Manso Sahueyo, and that's like the local name. So Sahueyo is where both the family fields and the family Vinata are based. Manso Sahueyo is very closely related to the agave rhodocantha, right? So not to get too far into it, but the world of agave and maguey's, as it's called in Mexico by locally, is a really funny world, because to the points we've been making about like bringing that kind of very Western mentality to everything, where everything must be categorized and classified, and we want to put things in neat little boxes. It's not how the real world works, and it's certainly not how the world of mezcal and agave works. These things are all interbreeding, they're all cross-pollinating, and they all kind of have little kind of connections with each other. But this one in particular for us, the Manso Sahueyo, really excited us for, I think, probably a couple of reasons. One, it produces a naturally sort of sweet mezcal off the back of it. And two, it is relatively speaking, matures within 7 to 8 to sometimes 10 years. So done the right way, it's actually something that you feel we could scale without doing anything, cutting corners, and doing it the right way. This one, I think, in terms of like flavor profile, as I say, it's quite a lightly smoked, like delicate smell. I think once it hits the palate, you kind of get a bit sort of sweet almonds, you get a bit of sort of citrusy sort of development in the mouth. And then I think often we've had it sort of described as being quite like a crisp finish, almost like sort of cucumbery sometimes as well. Some people, when they try it as well, they'll get sort of like a bit of a lactic creamy note as well. And a lot of that is just the malolactic reactions that are occurring in what's called the tails distillation, like the end distillation. So within the alembic, which is like the still that it gets sort of distilled in, you've got the heads, which tends to be a lot of methanol. And that's like the first distillation. Then you've got the heart, which is sort of like 85-90% of the liquid that goes into the bottle in the end. And then there's the tails, which tends to be where there's more malolactic reactions going on. And actually what Milton does brilliantly is he triple distills all of his stuff. And he uses a mixture of the heads and the tails to like manage the ABV naturally without he doesn't just pour a load of water in it to like, dilute it or anything like that. But I think that's the thing that really drew us to, and has made us more and more excited about working with Milton, is so much liquid in the world is triple distilled. Double distilled. That triple distillation here, what that does is it concentrates the flavors it reduces some of the smokiness, which for us was really important. That it wasn't something that people were immediately put off by because it just smelled too strong, too smoky. But it also, it's a different sip every time. There's real complexity to this thing. And I think for us, this particular mezcal is excellent, I think, for sipping, but it's also very versatile because you can mix it really, really well. It might be like quite a delicate sip, but it punches really well through cocktails. And a lot of, when you're talking with people in the bar trade, they want to be making things with 5, 6, 7 different ingredients. This thing works throughout the levels. You don't lose it, despite the fact that it's actually quite a delicate, sort of lightly smoked mezcal. Again, you shouldn't have you don't tend to have favorites with your creations, or you try not to too much. And I don't, because I actually think both of these are absolutely fantastic for different times and different uses. And if you think about, so if we move to the sort of the blend or the ensemble, I think this is a more true representation really of what historically mezcal would be. This sort of idea of single malt and single variety is kind of borrowed from whiskey, right? And I think it's a sort of a thing, it's more of a trend in where they're trying to appeal more to the whiskey drinkers. And there's nothing wrong with that. But actually this has got 10% of what's in here as well, because we felt that actually having a small blend of the Bruto with the Manso actually made a lot of sense, because it really creates something different and special. For this one, it's 50-50, like a wild maguey called Bruto, and it really is exactly what it sounds like. It's a brut. It's an enormous agave that, flowers after about 15 to 20 years, can grow up to about 50 feet when it does flower. I mean, these things are trees. The seeds can weigh up to half a ton, and so they have to go out and forage for them.
You need horses and a small army.
Yeah, I mean, it's mad stuff. And so there's basically 50% of this wild maguey and then 50% of the Manso Sahuaro. It's kind of like, Manso kind of means like meek and mild, and Bruto just basically means brute. And it's a bit like Beauty and the Beast sort of smashing together, and it produces, for Ian and I, probably, if you're going to sort of like choose, if we had to, like, this is our ride or die kind of mezcal, it would probably be this one, because there's something very special, I think, about the meeting of those two agave and what Milton's done here. There is, I think, it's actually arguably more delicate to smell than the Manso, weirdly, because this is 50% ABV. It is a heady drink, right? But again, I think what you get is something a little bit more peppery, a little bit more like sort of salted nuts sort of coming through, but even more kind of creamy finish at the end with this one. So it really, like, we call it like a show sipper. Like it really is a beautiful drink.
Yeah, I think ultimately they've got, for us, the kind of ideal moment for both of these expressions is different. Yeah, this is the sipper. If you love mezcal, you're gonna absolutely adore this. This, and what got me so excited about the Manso was just every mixologist that we went to when we got our samples and we're taking them around London and just saying, what do you think? Like, give us some feedback. And they're all just getting so excited about the different cocktails that they could make with it. They could replace different alcohols with it, and it's just kept coming back with more and more different drinks, and all of them tasted amazing. So again, for us, it was by design to have one that was more for sipping, and one that's more for making a cocktail. Yeah,
and I think as well, like, for what's interesting with this as well is, like, one of the people that we work very close with is one of our sort of advisors and investors is a guy called Ferdi Ahmed, and he launched like the Barrio bars back in the day. So he was like one of the, along with a few other people, like one of the OGs of like bringing agave spirits to the UK for people for the first time. And I remember when we went and did a tasting with him the first time, and his immediate reaction was, "That's incredible. What have you done to it?" There was this kind of like, "There's got to be something in here. Like, what's the catch? Yeah, what's the catch, guys? Like, what have you done with this thing? Like, where's all this complexity of flavour coming from? This natural sweetness? Like, how are you doing it?" And we were like, "No, there's no catch. It's just the difference of terroir. It's the difference of plants. It's the influence of the mezcalero himself in terms of what he did with distillation." And so, to Ian's point, it's again, going back to that idea of the spirit less ordinary, it surprises people. Every single time they take a sip of these two drinks, it's not what they're expecting. There's something different to it versus what they're used to having, which again, some of this has been through I think, happy circumstance, but again, knowing what we wanted. And I think some of it is just out and out, like sticking to our guns and being like, this is the kind of flavor profile that we want.
Okay. And you've been to see bartenders, cocktails. Do you want to talk about signature cocktails?
Yeah. So we have like 2 signature serves. Both of them developed with he's a good mate of ours now, Joseph Hall, who's like ex Satan's Whiskers, ex Savoy, got his own business called Jago Creative. And he worked with us. He actually created like a range of, and again, our brief to this guy was, it needs to be so simple that a mug like Ian and I can make it at home, but it needs to feel special. Like, it needs to be able to made with stuff that anyone can get their hands on, and it's not a difficult technique, but it needs to feel like a bit special. And so he came up with 2 incredibly simple serves that look absolutely epic. One of them is like an aperitivo, so like your first drink of the night. I suppose it's rocket fuel. It's amazing stuff. And obviously you were drinking it on the night as well. So that is, it's called the Mariposa. So it's just named after the butterfly, and the monarch butterfly in particular is a huge part of one of the natural wonders of Michoacan, because they fly from the southern states of the US and California down into Michoacan, and they migrate down at certain times of the year. And it's like an incredible thing for people to go and visit in the national parks that are out there. And it's got it's a blend of the Manso with a dry vermouth, a little bit of elderflower cordial, a healthy squeeze of lime, and then just topped with tonic. And if you wanted it like that, you could just do it like that. But then again, what he also has in there is like a little slice of grapefruit, which can be charred, which is kind of representative of the wings of the monarch butterfly, and then with a little olive garnish in there as well. So it's kind of like a vodka martini, sort of meets, I don't know, like,
yeah.
It's basically like a vodka. It's like a riff on the vodka martini.
It's a real quencher, isn't it? I can sort of imagine, finishing a workout or a game of five-side football with some mates and having that as your first drink.
Yeah.
It's great.
It is lovely. And then the other serve is what you would do is more, I think, of a sort of like a less of an aperitivo, perhaps more of a, like, it's sunny outside. We've got a few mates around. I want a picture of something that's going to get people, getting in the right vibe, and it's a cerveza cooler, we called it, and it is literally again Zacal with some elderflower cordial again, and then again a very healthy sort of squeeze of lime, because it helps balance it out with the elderflower, and then topped up with your choice of Mexican lager. We went with Corona just because it's kind of, it's in Milton's name, and it's a lovely, because his last name is Corona, and it's like it's a lovely light lager that mixes really well, and not to make it sound less lavish than it actually is. It's basically the turbo shandy of turbo shandies. It's unbelievable stuff, and again it's garnished with some slices of cucumber, with a bit of lime as well. So it's a very, both of these are incredibly refreshing, very enticing and very Moorish, but again incredibly easy to make at home, which was again what we were really keen on making sure we had.
So if the you of 7 years ago walked in and listened to you say all of that, what would he think?
This guy's learnt a lot. He didn't know any of this stuff, and where's he got this information from? Like I think I've gone from being somebody that was really just a sort of, I know what I liked and I would try certain things in a bar, to actually being much more adventurous, I think, with what I like to drink and what I like to do, as a result, I think, of working on this business and on this brand with the guys. And just kind of, I think, for me, I'm a very impatient person by nature. I think this, along with having kids, has definitely taught me to be a bit more patient, and certainly to be more willing to listen and learn, and there's not one way of doing things. I think that's, me 7 years ago was still a very, like, my way or the highway. And I think, working, to Ian's point he made really well earlier, it was like working with all these different kinds of people from all these different kind of backgrounds, working remotely, maybe only seeing them once every 6 months, because that's all we can do. You learn just to be far more, like, diplomatic and patient and collaborative in what you're doing, because there is no doubt in my mind you can be very, very, very good by yourself, but you could be amazing, but an amazing one person will never beat 5 or 6 motivated good people. And I think that to Ian's point, like it's that network of people that we've built up, whether it's like Hayley, like Matt, like all the people that work with us now, like we are so much better than we were when we first did this, because we've just got more inputs and more ideas and more angles and more perspectives.
And appreciating you don't know everything and you can't do everything.
No.
Yeah,
and
huge.
I'm bad for that. Like but I love learning stuff, so I want to try my hand at everything. But I think certainly for me, it's also just like an appreciation for experts, an appreciation for specialisation. It's good to be a jack of all trades who can do lots of things quite well. But my God, takes it on to another level when you work with somebody that really knows their onions and has literally made a life out of this stuff. Makes all the difference.
So, 2 questions. The name and your strapline, Spirit Less Ordinary. So, where did the name come from and the strapline?
So, do you know what? The name Zacal really for us came about because we were navigating an awful lot of shark-infested water in terms of trying to find names that you could actually use. Trademark law and IP has definitely been one of the big things for us. There's some funny stories, right, about how we managed to navigate some of this stuff where Milton helped us out on occasions. And I think, we turned away from Spanish. We kind of went down the route of trying to find a word that meant something and that we thought would work really well in the category that we were in. And we came across this word Zacal, and it's Slavic, but it means let's go. It means and let's have it, basically. Let's party, let's go, let's do this. But it also alliterated brilliantly with mezcal, so Zacal, mezcal. So when you're thinking about in a category where there are already loads of brilliant brands, how do you kind of build that association with mezcal more easily? It's because it rolls off its tongue. It's because the two things sound like they should go together. We're actually in conversations at the moment about trying to get out into Prague, and the guys out there are like, you know what Zacal means over here? And we were like, yeah, that's why we're talking to you. And they're like, this is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
They're excited because of what it means. So yeah, that's where it came from. I think in terms of the Spirit Less Ordinary, man, we threw around an awful lot of because this has become both like a North Star for how we think of almost every decision that we're making, through to being a strapline. It's one of those phrases that I think is just very versatile. And again, that really, mate, to be honest with you, just came of just playing around with word combinations, but also just the very essence of everything that we'd done to that point. Because we came up with Spirit Less Ordinary actually after we'd made quite a lot of decisions. And it was like, well, actually, everything that we've done is just different. It's like, but how do we come up with something in them which is almost like common parlance, which is a phrase that has meaning already, but that also, I think the Spirit Less Ordinary plays to 2 things. One, it plays to the fact that we are just different by design, and we've tried, and where we're from, who we're working with, the liquid itself, the plants that have, yielded the beautiful sugars to produce what we have. But also it kind of spoke to a kind of person that we wanted to try to appeal to as well.
It's kind of rare that you're kind of like your North Star as a business vision is also becomes your strapline.
Yeah. It will probably change over time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just one of those things where it not only was a true representation of what we'd already done and where we wanted to go, it was already something, it meant something to people. But it was also something that I think, as I say, it's spoken 2 different ways, which I think just worked really well for us.
And do you want to speak a little bit about the area that it's made and the people there?
I mean, look, Michoacan is an unbelievable place if you get the chance to go there. It has a history of almost being like the rebel state, in the fact that it's historically been where a lot of the leaders and the movements behind both the War of Independence against Spain in the 1800s and then actually the Mexican Civil War that was in the early 1900s, a lot of the people that sort of led some of that and a lot of the push and the charge came from Michoacan. It's raw, right? And again, that was one of the things that we absolutely loved about it, is that it felt like a real Mexico, if there is such a thing, that, and it's known throughout Mexico is El Alma de Mexico. So it's like the spirit of Mexico. And I think, that the romanticism of it being kind of almost like a revolutionary state where they wanted to change things and do things differently, I think
that spoke to us
massively. And it just sort of chimed really well with like Milton and how it just all kind of knits and threads together. And I as a result of that, I think Michoacan is like this, it's become, and it is known as being like the home of poets and artists and painters and writers, and they're all kind of drawn to it as well. And I think again, like the specific area that we ended up being in, because we were drawn to Milton, it's Highlands. So it's a beautiful, epic landscapes, which again, all that Highlands has an impact on the plants.
The soil composition.
And it sort of, all of it knits together to tell this beautiful story. Even like the other day when we were driving up, when we were in there in March, we were driving up and we stopped at the top of the. You're up about 2,500 meters, and you're just looking down into the huge lake that sits in the middle of Michoacan, and you're just like, this is just raw, beautiful nature. Like it's a hell of a place.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare it to, because I just come from Oaxaca, and if which is the main mezcal region, and it's again they are night and day.
Completely different.
Regions. Oaxaca's a very wealthy state now because of all the the mezcal industry. Michoacan is still very much a developing state, and that's another thing that gets us excited about should this be successful in trying to help make a big impact on the local community.
Lovely. And actually I'm not saying we're going to put Michoacan on the map, but actually just sort of doing the job of like almost like selling the area, selling the place, selling all the beautiful things that go on there. And that, for us, as time goes on, we really want to champion the origin and where it's from, because there's such interesting stories to be told about that place and its history and its culture. The cities, Morelia, which is like the capital city, sort of the state capital for Michoacan, is absolutely stunning. It's, and I think the beauty of it as well is it sort of sits it's close to sort of Mexico City. It sits next to Jalisco. So, for Michoacan, speaking just specifically about like the direction of travel for us as a business, is mezcal's our first like love, right? And it will be forever. But actually, because of what Michoacan offers, we could be exploring tequila, because they grow tequiliana there, and actually they can legally make tequila. We can explore charanda because they are legally allowed to make Mexican rum, which is called charanda. Like, there's all kinds of wonderful opportunities within this place. Like it is, when I really think about it, it is unbelievable how lucky we were again in like, we made the decision to go somewhere outside of Oaxaca, but for us to have like landed on Michoacan as a place and just unearthed all of this treasure trove of
it's
history.
Just further validated our decision, basically.
But again, it's like, these are some of these things, yes, are by design, but it's just really, but provenance makes me sound like I'm maybe being a little bit almost like religious and fanatical in the way, but it does feel a bit like, it does make you kind of feel a little bit like it was meant to be as well, which makes us all very excited, to be honest, because it just keeps reinforcing that we're doing something good,
So it's early days. I hear that there's an award already.
Yeah.
And so do you want to speak about the award and also, just plans for the next year or so, what's happening?
Yeah, so a week out from the product landing, we very, very humbled and happy to be, both of our expressions were awarded the Master Medal, which is like the top accolade at the Global Spirit Masters, within a week of it landing. And I mean, that was such a wonderful validation, because again, like to Ian's point, we chopped the mezcal around, we sent samples to people, we tried it with people, and
we knew it was great.
We knew it was great, but again, it's like for complete unknowns to do a blind taste testing of that stature, which is, this Global Spirit Masters is, and for these to be people that try God knows how many spirits on a regular basis, for them to like recognise how different and interesting and special it was, I think was massive. It was a massive shot in the arm for us, because I think, when you've gone 3.5 years through this, and as we were sort of alluding to, you've had lots of either bumps in the road or even like false starts. I think to sort of come out of the gate and straight away you get that sort of validation. It's very, it makes that kind of feel like we've really come out of the blocks. In terms of like where we go from here, this is not a joke. Like, product roadmaps are literally changing as we speak. Like, what we're doing is changing sometimes week by week. But I think like the general drive here, we want to be the number one like independent artisanal mezcal in the country. And that's what we're driving towards within the next 3 years, if we can. And again, it's quite a lofty ambition, but that's what we're gunning for. There is very much when you think about, we need to be seen in the right hands, being drunk by the right people. And when I say right, I mean people that really love this stuff. I don't mean like we're paying people. I mean, they love it. And that's why they're doing this. We want to try to avoid as much as possible. Like, we get that some of these things are always going to be pay to play. They just, even awards, you have to pay to enter the awards. But like, as much as possible, we want it to be people that genuinely believe and love what we're doing and what Milton's producing with us. And that's going to be really important. And actually one of the things we're going to be discussing later on is, how do we get out to those networks? How do we get people sort of sampling it and enjoying it? And how it sort of fits with their way of seeing the world. And really playing again to that spirit less ordinary idea of like speaking to other spirit less ordinaries about what makes them less ordinary, and what their thoughts are around mezcal and Zacal in general. And then the other piece of it is obviously how we expand in terms of the trade. That we're also very lucky to be in a position where we are almost being courted by some of the biggest businesses around at the moment who want to take us on. And that some of that is down to relationships, but obviously that can only open doors. Most of it is because they love what they see, they love what they hear, and they're really enjoying what they taste. And I think, for us, within like 3 or 4 months, if some of the things that are going on land the way that we hope we do, we're going to be in such a privileged position for a very, very, to your point, brand new brand.
Yeah.
But the focus on that is to get the right partnerships, both from like a sort of creative and influencer perspective, but also from like a trade and just commercial side, and get the right partners who really buy into us, buy into the liquid, really believe in what we're doing and want to work deeply with us, because we believe the only way we're going to win as a small brand is if we go deep with a few and we disproportionately kind of outshine everybody else. That's the only way we can really win. You're not going to probably suddenly see us in Waitrose next month. Like, that's just not what we're going to. We're not anti-Waitrose. Like, hey, if they want to, we're not going to say no. But again, it's just not what we're pushing towards. And again, it's like thinking about, we're getting opportunities to just nibble around the edges of other markets and just sort of play around, whether it's in France.
Just for context,
yeah.
I mean, Andrew, one of the co-founders, he's based in France. So again, there's an opportunity there to start expanding into Europe, probably quicker than we would have potentially thought originally. But we've got to sort of take those opportunities. And
absolutely.
And again, just from the reaction that we've had from people in Mexico, we were initially thinking like Mexico wouldn't even be on our roadmap. For a while, but the excitement that we've seen from people that have seen this product and generally see it as something really different. Again, it's at the premium end of the market, but the opportunities are really opening up at the moment.
It is
really exciting.
and I do think our job is going to be to say what we don't want to do. And to sort of try and stay true to the course and continue to do that, because it's really, really easy to get wooed, and it's really, really easy to get massively overexcited by these businesses that are just saying they want to do this and they want to do that, and we've got to just be very careful of the fact that we just remain patient. It's taken us a long time to get here. It will continue to probably take us a long time to become what we hope we can be, but it's just not rushing. It's not making too many snap decisions. It's not getting too overexcited by the opportunities that land our way.
This isn't like AI, where it is it's a gold rush, and it's happening in days, weeks, and the opportunity is going to be gone if you're not you bring something to market 100%. In a few months. This is a growing, healthy, hundreds of years old industry. That is the fastest growing one of the fastest growing alcohol categories. It's a huge opportunity. We've just got to do it right. We've got to be thoughtful. We've got to your point, we've got to be sometimes a bit more patient, and we have to execute well.
Yeah, 100%. And it is that, you know, because that's what ends up burning so many people, is that they just overexpand. They say yes to too many things. They try and pull themselves in too many different directions. And yeah, I think that, you know, it just goes against everything. It's like, you know, if we asked Milton, we could probably get him to like turn the taps on in terms of like production. But what we know will then happen is this isn't what it was. Suddenly it's like not just him overseeing things, he's having to get other people to oversee things, and then it's not what we were set out to do.
Where I think where Oaxaca, you know, from going into, you know, different distilleries over there and seeing what's going on, it's really creaking, because, you know, when you've got all of the production of mezcal happening in one region, and, you know, mezcal is flying in America, it's you know, it's huge consumption in Mexico, it's now growing rapidly in Europe. The market's starting to creak, and as a result, the quality will ultimately.
It will, and you know, and in the back of our mind, that was again some of the decisions that we made, and what we continue to think about is what we're desperate to do is to learn from what's happened to tequila, where they've gone so heavy into, like, they've had to, because it's all on one plant, the Blue Weber agave, and it's pretty much really all on one state, Jalisco. I mean, there are 5 states where you can make tequila, but it's pretty much all out of there. It's happened naturally in mezcal, and that, again, one of the decisions, it was like, this is a good thing for us to be doing here, because we're not contributing to what could potentially be a bit of an economic disaster brewing in some of these places by us just kind of moving some of the focus elsewhere. You know, because the danger is, like, you end up just cooking the golden goose. Like, this stuff is incredible, and you end up just wrecking it because everyone gets too greedy and too rapacious and just doesn't think about, this is a generational play. We still want this thing to be here in 20, 30 years. We don't
just
want
selfishly, because we still want to be enjoying a mezcal with friends.
I don't really enjoy it with my kids per se. They probably, knowing the kids of today, they probably won't be drinking, but which would be tragic. But but yeah, you know, again, for us, it is, you have to sort of just go, whoa, just take a breath, take a minute. You know, and again, it's kind of, as I said earlier, like some of these decisions, it's like, is it a one-way door or a two-way door? Like, because if we do this, can we never come back? Or actually, can we come back from some of this stuff, and actually it won't ruin everything if we make that choice? So, yeah, I think the next, you know, if we speak again, like, things will have changed so much in the next 6 months, probably the next 6 weeks, I'd imagine, let alone like a year from now.
And where can we buy it? I presume from your website?
Yeah, www.zacalmezcal.com. We are in conversations, well, we are actually in conversations with Amazon. We're actually having to talk directly to them. So that's sort of in the offing, same with Master of Malt. So those are sort of potentially coming soon as well. And as I said to you earlier, like, we are in conversations with some on-trade partners about getting listed in the on-trade, and we're in conversation. I was actually having conversations about it last night with some folks who love what we're doing and can see it sitting on their shelves, ideally on the premium shelf, because we, you know, I think that for us as well, it's so much of this is visibility. It's just being seen, you know, and then eventually being tried. And I think for most people, you know, we were having conversations yesterday with somebody that never drunk mezcal before, but they like tequila and they like whiskey, and they tried this and they were like, yeah, I can see why people. He was like, I can see why people aren't sure, but I can see why they would enjoy this. And I think tasting experiences is the best way forward with this stuff. Like, once you hear it and learn about it and try it, sort of mist lifts off your eyes, and you're like, okay, this is, I can enjoy this. I can do this. This is interesting.